Welcome to Olympian Water Testing, giving you the best in water analysis. Today we are looking at the National Wildlife Federation at Mercury's harmful effects. So we can see what it's doing to wildlife. Mercury is a hidden risk to wildlife. We talked about how it can affect animals, specifically fish, but why is mercury so dangerous to wildlife? Well, mercury can have adverse effects and neurological and reproductive system effects of humans and wildlife, and has long been known to contaminate freshwater lakes, fish, and fish-eating birds. So, as methylmercury gets into the water, then it affects the fish. It gets into the fish's gills, it accumulates there, and there's not really a way to remove it. Then, what happens is, these wildlife, specifically these fish-eating birds, as we can see here, they start to eat the fish, and then mercury accumulates in them. And that includes loons and eagles. And that disturbs the whole ecosystem in turn. A recent study by New York State scientists and other researchers in the Adirondack region reiterated this problem by showing the common loons below. So we can see the loons enjoying their fish with elevated mercury levels produce significantly fewer chicks. So as this is happening, this is affecting wildlife because of their reproduction status. They can only make so many chicks. And as we know, what happens is the mercury gets in, they have less chicks. This is going to cause imbalances in populations and imbalances in the ecosystem. And until recently, however, terrestrial species that do not eat fish were thought to be safe. Are they? Well, mercury is used to consider just a loon and a lake's problem, says Tim Tier, Director of Science for the Natural Conservancy in New York. In 2005, the perception changed when researchers documented mercury in Bicknell's thrushes. So first, they thought it was only loons, but that's not the case. It also affected terrestrial birds that inhabit mountaintops in the northeast. A groundbreaking discovery jump-started inquiry into mercury levels in other songbird species. The resulting data are compiled in The Hidden Risk, Mercury in Terrestrial Ecosystems of the Northeast, a report published in 2011 by Biodiversity Research Institute in Maine and the Natural Conservancy, combining data from 2,680 animals across 92 species collected in 11 states from Virginia to Maine. And the report sheds light on the threat of mercury disposition. So what is going on? How big of a threat is it? Well, we now have a much better grasp on which species are in trouble, said David Evers, Executive Director and Chief Scientist of the Biodiversity Research Institute, a leading research center for mercury in wildlife. Wetland obligate birds in mercury hotspots are highly prone to contamination, particularly in the Northeast. That's because water, especially water acidified by air pollution, speeds up the process through which bacteria can convert inorganic mercury from coal into its organic, poisonous cousin, methylmercury. Wetlands, bogs, beaver ponds, coastal marshes, even foggy mountaintops, and forest floors are all incubators for methylmercury. Insects and invertebrates in these moist habitats feed on plant debris containing the substance and allow it to enter the terrestrial food web, and larger insects and spiders eat smaller insects, and the songbirds eat the toxic insects and spiders. In each step up the food chain, the mercury becomes concentrated, a process known as biomagnification. As you can see here, songbirds aren't alone as well. This does affect bats. Bats are already stressed by white noise syndrome and are facing population declines and consume vast amounts of insects in their long lifespans. So this is an ecosystem, as I said. It gets into the water, it affects the songbirds, it also affects the vegetation, then it affects the bats, and that allows them to accumulate a lot of mercury. And the big brown bat, little brown bat, and the northern long-eared bat, endangered Indiana bat, and eastern smallfoot bat showed mercury levels that could affect reproduction according to the hidden risk. So it is affecting a lot of wildlife. You might say, hey, my pets are safe. You might say, okay, well, some of my farm animals are safe, but it's really a concern that this is affecting wildlife. And this affects the whole ecosystem, which will in turn affect us and our pets. So it's always a good idea in big bodies of water as well, people who are working around those or people who are concerned about wildlife, to have water periodically tested for high levels of mercury.